Hey everybody, it's GW Xavier with more memories coming to you in Indiana with part 2 of our Legacy of Love Project Playbook Scrap Journal Size Edition. So in this episode we're going to create project number 2 from the Legacy of Love collection Project Playbook, which is formatted in 12 by 12. We're going to scale that down into the scrap journal size, which is the 6.75 or 6 3/4 by 10. So I have what we're going to need for this particular project out. I've got my trimmer. I've got the gemstone chain BMC that released with this collection. I've got my tape runners, repo and regular, pencil if I need it, but I don't think I do. Got my project playbook, and of course I got my designer papers and cardstock. So let's take a quick look at project 2. So here on project 2, we are going to use the diamond, or they call this harlequin print, along with, I believe they call the gemstone diagonal craft paper that we're going to use to cut out our BMC, and black cardstock. Of course, with the black cardstock, you could swap that out for a different black designer paper if you wanted, that you like the print that goes with the harlequin. There is one within this pack. I didn't particularly like how it would mesh with all of this, so I stuck with the black cardstock. But you could certainly swap that out with a different black print if you want. And then for our photo mats, they tell us to use the diamond tile print, and they give us those cutting guides, and we can see that they give us those matte placements in the bottom part with all of the other placements. So of course I'm not going to be cutting mats yet for this particular project, just because I need to kind of get all my photos in line, but at least I'll have my pages ready to go for a Scrap Journal Heritage album. So I'm going to set this piece aside real quick and move my Legacy of Love pack over here. And so I've got all my papers that I'll need. I've got the harlequin. I've got that craft, that brown craft that they tell us to use. This is the matte print. So doing my photo mats, the playbook tells us to use this particular print, just so that you guys can see it. And I got some black cardstock. So of course with the cardstock, if you've got a scrap or scraps that meet the size that you'll need for it, by all means, go ahead and use that. Use up that stash, use up those scraps versus cutting into a fresh sheet. So first off, we're going to take our harlequin print and we're going to make our cuts. So in the playbook, our cutting guide here at the top is telling us to, in a 12 by 12 size, it's telling us to make a 4 by 12 cut and another 4 by 12 cut, and then cut diagonally. So in the scrap journal size, what we're going to need to just do is scale that down a bit. And you could go with 2 1/4 cut, or I'm going to go with 2 1/2. I just kind of like a little bit more of the print. So I'm going to go with 2 1/2 on this particular one. So I'm going to bring my paper to the 2 1/2 mark on my trimmer. Cut. I can put this aside now. And I'm going to need this to be 2 1/2 by 6 3/4, because that is the width of the page that I'm working with. So I'm going to line this up to my 6 3/4 mark. Cut. I got a little scrap. I'm going to put that to the side. So now cutting on the diagonal, this is the other piece we want to pay attention to get the correct flow of that layout, we can see that we've got the thicker piece going to the thinner on the other side, and on the bottom we've got the thinner going to the thicker piece on the bottom. So how I cut this will matter, okay? So if we go back to our cutting guide, we can get the right angle here. Just bring it closer. We can see that we're going to need to angle our paper so that we get this type of cut that's a little bit thicker on the left hand top and a little bit skinnier on the right hand bottom. So how do we do that? It's very easy, and actually in this particular layout, if you wanted to cut both strips together, you could do that and save yourself just some extra flip-flopping cutting time. I've already kind of prepped the one side of the one page just to kind of make sure I got my measurements already, like I usually do. So I'll zoom in a little bit for you here for us to check this out. Don't need my arm. Okay. So I've got my paper here. I'm going to angle this so that the bottom corner fits into the corner here at the 2-inch mark. And my top corner on the right side hits the 1-inch line here. Oop, let me move up a little bit. There we go. Sorry, didn't notice that. So again, bottom left corner, I'm going to line that up to my 2-inch mark on the left. Top right corner, I'm going to put that at the 1-inch mark on my trimmer. Then I will cut, and I've got my angled cut that we see in the guide. I'm gonna put those aside. We'll give a little more space here so you can see everything. There we go. Okay. So you're going to do that with both of the 2.5 by 6 3/4 strips. Same cut. So that's why I say you could layer them on top of each other and angle them and cut once, and you've got all 4 strips that you need. Next up, so you could cut, if you have a scrap piece the right size, or you just need to make a little quick trim, you could certainly use a full 6 3/4 by 10 piece of black cardstock or black print paper that you prefer if you really want to. If you're trying to conserve a little bit of the cardstock, or paper, what we can do is just make a little bit of a trim. And so what would that look like? We would need a 8 by 6 3/4 cut. So either which way you need to make that happen. So we could come in here at 8 inches. Yes. Or did I do that? I did that backwards. Sorry, guys. 6 3/4 needs to be our first cut. Sometimes I get a little turned around, but it happens. All right, I just have an extra strip to use somewhere. That's good. Now I'm gonna make my lengthwise cut. I'm gonna have my 8-inch in here, okay? I can put my trimmer aside, and I can put this aside as well for the moment, because I want to do all my cuts first and then work with my placement. So I'm going to get my gemstone BMC, I'll get my cartridge housing and my paper holder. Okay. So I will always double check on both sides of the page to look at the pattern. If I'm going to use, border punch or BMC, because it's going to matter then what size do I have and what direction that I want to have it in. So I'm thinking going this way will work. And I'm just going to make do this twice, because 6 3/4 and 6 3/4 does not equal 12 even, right? We get more than 12. So I have to just make 2 strips of punches. In the 12 by 12 size, you would have to make about 4. Well, yeah, 4. And depending on how things get angled, maybe you could get away with... No, I don't know what I'm talking about. Never mind. Ignore that. Okay, and I got my punches. I'm just gonna clean up a little bit here. I can put that paper aside, and I can put my BMC stuff aside as well, because now I'm going to put that page together. So as you can see, I pre-made the right-hand side minus the BMC part, and so we'll put together the left-hand side. So we'll get our cuts and our cardstock here. And so excellent. So I'm just going to get some adhesive on here. I'm going to be a little bit cautious with the slanted part, because I'm going to need to tuck in that piece of cardstock. So I want to make sure I've got room and I'm not fighting with the adhesive to do that. Then line up the straight edge with the page. Hard to see a little bit. White on white. Gotta get in here a little bit more. There we go. Same thing with the bottom strip. I'm just going to be careful how close I get to that angled piece with my adhesive, so I can tuck in my black cardstock. Oops, that's a little close. But that's okay. Okay. Now I'll just put some adhesive on my black cardstock. And get my multi-purpose tool, because sometimes it helps just with getting that lip up to fit things in where I need to. So I might need to make a little lift here just to get things to slide in to make sure they're covered. Okay, and I can put that down. I'm just going to tuck this in at the top now. Okay. I'm not going to be too worried about, you know, that little piece that's showing there, because I've got these borders too to place. So let's check our playbook just to see where it suggests we place our punch, and it's suggesting that we use the bottom row over the seam for the bottom section, and then the top row to cover the seam on the top section. So we can take a quick look at what that will look like. Something like that. With that. Okay. So that should probably work really good. I can always, you know, if I want, I could push this up if I wanted, but I might lose that design a little bit in that print. You can probably see it's a little tough to see on the left side. So I will most likely go with how they suggest the placement be with that. Oops, you know what? I think I'm gonna need an extra one. We'll do that in a minute because we'll do our cuts next. We'll get our trimmer. So I'm going to need to trim both of these at that 6 3/4 mark. Put these together and do one cut. Get my silicone mat, my repo tape, flip these over, get some repo on them. Oops. Okay, and then I'll place the bottom one along the bottom part of the punch. These triangles will go along just over the seam here. And then my top one will be, I'll use the top triangle seam, or the top of the row of my punch, across that seam. Oops, miscalculated my cut there. Or did I grab the wrong one? No, I got the right one. So what we'll just do, we can paper weld. And so let me grab my micro tip scissors. I'm going to just make a quick cut here. I'm gonna need to cut pretty much at the triangle, the next ones. So cut those. Repo, I'm gonna use some tweezers because it's a little small now. And Bam. You can't even tell. So we got one side done. So I am gonna need to use or get another cut of the gemstone chain. So I will make sure to have that in the instructions to cut 3 of them. And I'm only going to need 1 extra because I've got these extra scraps that we just saw, right? I can paper weld them together for where I need them. So, get my trimmer quick. Make my cut at 6 3/4. Side. There we go. All right. And then it'll fit best. Probably. Well, either top or bottom. So I'm wondering if I might have been when I was cutting them together, I might have had it a little bit off on the one. So just double check that when you're making that cut. So I'm going to use this one at the top. Repo tape. And then we will place there. Now I've got these that I can use here. And so I will just have to cut this one kind of almost at that in the triangle in half, but just kind of just before it. So make sure I have enough room. I'm just going to go a little bit in with it. Get my repo tape. Just grab my other page just to make sure things are mostly lining up. Yeah. The piece is just that. We're working in a different size. So sometimes that will distort things a bit. And again, I'm just going to paper weld these together. And there we go. So I got a little bit of scrap left, and that's okay. Maybe they'll come in handy somewhere else. Okay. And so here we go. Project 2 from the Legacy of Love Project Playbook. With our Harlequin prints, our gemstone chain BMC. I always forget the name of it. And our black cardstock. And so again, photo placement, if I want to use that particular print that the playbook tells me to, right, I'm going to be thinking about photo placement for sure. What size photos I can use. Right, so again, 4x4, I'm only going to really, unless I start overlapping things, I'm only going to really be able to get one on each page there. Different photo sizes will, of course, work depending on how big I want my mats. I have some room to play with as well. So hope you enjoyed, hope it was helpful. And if you need any of these supplies, for sure, reach out to your favorite advisor or reach out to me at GW Xavier at More Memories on Facebook, as well as shopping on the Creative Memories website. You can always shop with your favorite advisor if you'd like to shop with me. Be sure to list me as your advisor, GW Xavier Mohr, and I'm from Indiana. Or you can use my website, creativememories.com/cm/gm83. And hope to see you again. Coming up next, we're going to do the third project layout. So here's a sneak peek at that one in the scrap journal size. So definitely join me for that. And happy scrapping.